Welcome to FearSpiral. The forest had always stood there looming at the edge of the village like a wall of endless shadows. People said it stretched farther than anyone could map, an ocean of trees swallowing light, silence, and sometimes people for years. I had heard the whispers, "Don't go near Devil's Hollow," they said. Animals vanish there, hunters never return. Old men swore the wind itself carried voices that did not belong to the living. But I had never been one to listen. My name is Daniel Ward, 28 years old, a wildlife researcher by profession, and a stubborn fool by nature. My colleagues often accused me of chasing myths instead of data, of following ghost stories, rather than scientific evidence. Maybe they were right. But the night I decided to step into the forest, it wasn't science that pushed me forward, it was curiosity, that dangerous itch that whispers, what if they're wrong? The air grew colder the moment I crossed the wooden bridge into the hollow. Behind me, the world felt safe, fireflies above the marshes, faint lights of the village twinkling. Ahead, the forest yawned open, thick with mist, branches interwoven like skeletal fingers locking me inside. I switched on my flashlight. Its beam cut a pale line through the fog, revealing crooked trunks and vines that twisted like snakes. My boots crunched on dead leaves, yet the sound felt swallowed, as though the forest didn't want noise disturbing its silence. I told myself I was here to study wildlife patterns, to note species, capture audio recordings of nocturnal calls, maybe even photograph the infamous hollow monkey people spoke of. But deep down, I knew I wanted more. I wanted proof. Proof that there was something lurking here that science couldn't explain. It was just past midnight when I first heard it. A rustle, not the wind, not an owl, something heavier. I froze, flashlight steady. The beam caught movement, branches shifting high above. Then I saw it. A monkey, its silhouette perched on a thick branch, tail curling like a rope, eyes glinting with an odd reflection in the light. Unlike the playful chatter I had always associated with monkeys, this one sat unnaturally still, watching, studying me. "Easy there," I whispered, though my voice sounded weak in the heavy air. It didn't move. Something about its posture unsettled me. Its back was hunched too sharply, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, almost human-like in the way it leaned forward. I raised my camera slowly and clicked. The flash burst across the forest, and in that instant, the monkey bared its teeth. Not in playfulness, not in warning, but in something I can only describe as mocking. And then, as if the sound were pulled from a nightmare, it laughed. A low, wheezy, hollow laugh. My chest tightened. Monkeys don't laugh. At least, not like that. The uneasy silence for the next hour, the forest changed. Where there should have been crickets, there was silence. Where owls should have hooted, there was only the sound of my own heartbeat, and the monkey followed me. I could see it sometimes ahead of me, sometimes behind, sometimes high above in the canopy. Each time I turned my flashlight, I caught its glowing eyes reflecting back, sometimes close, too close. At one point, when I stopped to record ambient sound with my microphone, I replayed the file immediately. What I heard wasn't silence, it was whispering, dozens of voices overlapping, speaking a language I couldn't understand, a harsh guttural tongue that scraped against my ears. My throat went dry as I realized those whispers hadn't been audible to me in the moment, only through the recording. I replayed the audio again. The whispers grew louder, and buried within them, faint but undeniable, was laughter. That same hollow laugh of the monkey, the mark on the tree by 2 a.m. I wanted to turn back. My scientific curiosity had melted into unease, and unease was beginning to rot into fear. That's when I found the tree. It stood thicker than the rest, bark dark and wet as if bleeding sap, but etched deep into its trunk was a marker, crude symbol carved by hand, a circle with jagged lines running through it, almost like claws tearing outward. I traced my fingers along the grooves. The edges were fresh, recent, and then, right behind me, the sound of something hitting the ground. I spun. The monkey stood there, no longer in the branches, right there, on the earth, barely 10 feet away. Up close, its features were wrong. Its fur, patchy, skin bruised like old rot, and its eyes were no longer animal eyes. They were deep, black, bottomless pits, as though staring into a well with no end. It opened its mouth, not a screech, not a howl, but words, low, raspy, human words that did not belong to it. Daniel Ward. End of part 1. The forest seemed to close in around me, as though the trees themselves leaned closer to listen. My breath hitched. I took a step back, but the monkey moved forward, its shadow stretching unnaturally long in the moonlight. And in that moment, one truth crashed into me like cold water. I wasn't studying the hollow. The hollow was studying me. Ethan stood frozen in the clearing as the monkey's movements became unnatural. Its limbs jerked in strange directions like a puppet controlled by invisible strings. The animal's eyes glowed with a sickly green light, and its mouth stretched far too wide, revealing teeth sharper than they had been moments before. The air grew heavy, pressing down on Ethan's chest, and each breath felt like inhaling smoke from a burning forest. The monkey's body trembled violently before going eerily still. Then a voice that was not its own crawled out of its throat, low and distorted. "Why do you walk where you are not welcome?" Ethan's skin turned cold as the unnatural words echoed through the forest. He took a slow step backward, gripping the flashlight with white knuckles. "I don't know what this is," he muttered to himself, his voice shaking. "But I have to move." The forest reacted as if angered. The wind howled through the branches, yet none of the trees moved. The leaves above him whispered his name in 1,000 voices, and he felt dozens of unseen eyes watching from every shadow. The monkey lunged its body, contorting in ways no creature should move. Ethan stumbled and barely managed to avoid the strike. Its claws raked across the dirt, leaving deep gouges in the earth. He scrambled toward the path, but the ground shifted beneath his feet, like the forest itself was turning against him. He ran blindly, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Every direction looked the same, thick trees twisted together, blocking the moonlight. Branches scraped against his arms and face, drawing thin lines of blood behind him. The creature shrieked, a sound too loud, too sharp, and far too human. He tripped over a root and hit the ground hard, the flashlight slipping from his hand. In the faint glow, he saw the monkey moving on all fours, but its limbs bent backward like a broken skeleton. It crept closer, its grin impossibly wide. Ethan reached for a rock, his hand trembling. The voice spoke again, this time deeper, darker, as though the forest itself was speaking through the monkey. "You cannot escape me, child of dust. I am older than these trees. I am the hunger that never ends." Ethan threw the rock with all his strength, striking the creature in the head. It shrieked and staggered, but instead of falling, its body twisted violently as if the impact only made it angrier. The ground around it pulsed and the roots writhed like snakes, reaching for Ethan's legs. He scrambled to his feet and sprinted toward a faint light between the trees. It was a cabin, old, abandoned, its roof sagging, but it offered the only hope of shelter. He burst through the door, slamming it shut behind him. As the creature slammed against the wood from outside, the cabin smelled of rot and mildew. The floor creaked with every step. Ethan's hand shook as he searched for something, anything, to defend himself with. He found an old rusted axe leaning in the corner. The handle, splintered but solid enough to swing. The pounding outside grew louder, each strike shaking the cabin walls. The voice seeped through the cracks like smoke. "You think walls will save you, you think wood will keep me out, this forest is mine." Ethan raised the axe, his chest heaving with fear. He whispered to himself, "I can't die here, I can't." Then everything went silent, no pounding, no voice, no sound of the forest at all, only the sound of his own heart. Slowly he lowered the axe and stepped closer to the window. The glass was fogged from the inside, as though something was breathing against it. He wiped a circle clean with his sleeve and peered out. Nothing. The clearing was empty. The trees still and silent. He turned away, relief flooding him. But when he faced the cabinet's interior again, the monkey was standing in the far corner of the room, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The monkey was inside. Its small chest rose and fell unnaturally, each breath sounding like a hiss dragged across broken glass. Its glowing green eyes didn't blink, didn't move, just locked on him, unblinking and hungry. Ethan raised the axe, his arms trembling. How did you?" The monkey's head snapped sideways with a sickening crack, like its neck had been twisted too far. It laughed, not a monkey's laugh, but the sound of a grown man whispering in mockery. "Walls mean nothing. Distance means nothing. There is no running from me." The air in the cabin grew cold. Frost spread across the cracked glass window as if winter itself had crept in. Ethan stepped backward until his back hit the rotting wall. The wood felt alive. He could swear it pulsed against his spine like a heartbeat. The creature crawled toward him, its arms bent at impossible angles, long fingers dragging across the floorboards, leaving black scorch marks where they touched. Ethan swung the axe wildly. The blade cracked through the air, grazing the monkey's shoulder. A scream erupted, not of pain, but of fury. The walls shook. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Ethan ran deeper into the cabin, into a narrow hallway. The floor sagged under his weight, threatening to give way. The monkey followed, its body twisting like liquid shadow, crawling on the walls and ceiling. Its voice chased him down the hall. "You are mine, Ethan. I will wear your skin until the hollow forgets your name." At the end of the hallway he found a door. He shoved it open and stumbled inside a small room. bare except for a wooden table and a lantern that flickered with a dim orange glow. The door slammed shut behind him, though he hadn't touched it. For a moment, silence, only his ragged breathing and the faint flames crackle. He lifted the lantern, scanning the room. On the table lay a book, old leather-bound, its cover cracked and blackened by age. Strange symbols were burned into it, symbols that seemed to writhe if he stared too long. His hands shook as he opened it. The pages were filled with drawings of the forest, of twisted animals, of human faces screaming in agony, and one sketch made his blood turn to ice. A monkey, with glowing eyes, the same one standing outside the door. The writing beneath it was in a language he couldn't understand, but 3 words had been scrawled in English at the bottom: hurried, desperate, don't look back. Ethan's chest tightened. He heard the door creak open slowly behind him. Cold air slipped into the room. He wanted to run, to scream, to fight, but his curiosity betrayed him. Against every instinct he turned. The monkey was there, half its face human now. A man's cheek stretched over one side of its skull, an eye that didn't belong staring at him with a milky white pupil. Its grin split wider, teeth jutting from gums that bled as they grew. The voice was different now, calmer. You've read the book, that means you belong to me. Ethan raised the lantern, his hand shaking so badly the light swayed across the walls, but the creature didn't move closer. It only grinned, waiting as if the game had just begun. The lantern's weak light quivered across the room, throwing the monster's shadow onto the walls, stretching it, twisting it into something far larger than the body it inhabited. Ethan clutched the book tighter. His hands were clammy, but the leather felt strangely warm, almost pulsing like flesh. The monkey creature leaned forward, its human eye twitching. Read it, Ethan. The hollow wants its story spoken. Ethan shook his head violently. No, whatever this is, I'm not part of it. But the pages fluttered on their own, as if an unseen wind tore through the room. They stopped midway on, a section stained with dried brown streaks that looked horribly like blood. The drawings showed villagers, men, women, children bound to trees, their faces contorted in silent screams. Above them loomed the monkey, the same glowing eyes staring back through the centuries. Words below had been translated into shaky English, scrawled by a different hand than the rest. The howler is no animal. It is the forest's hunger. It takes form in what we fear. It wears the faces of the lost. Never look back. Never answer when it calls. Ethan's skin crawled. His breathing quickened as he whispered to himself, never answer. Never. The creature slammed its hands onto the table, the wood hissing and smoking under its touch. The book rattled, but Ethan's eyes stayed locked on the text. Another entry appeared written lower on the page, fresher ink, darker, as if someone had added it more recently. If you hear the howlers scream 3 times, you are marked. The only escape is blood. Ethan's stomach dropped. He had already heard it twice. A sound broke the silence. A long guttural wail tore through the forest outside, shaking the walls of the cabin. It wasn't animal, wasn't human, it was something in between. The second scream followed instantly after. Ethan's blood ran cold. The creature leaned close, its breath foul, its grin splitting impossibly wide. One more, it whispered, and you will never leave this forest. Ethan stumbled back, clutching the axe in one hand, the book in the other. His heart thundered so loudly it drowned out thought. He had seconds, maybe less, and then it came. The third scream, louder than thunder, rattling the glass, cracking the wood beneath his feet. Ethan collapsed to his knees, the lantern shattering as it fell. Darkness rushed in, swallowing the room whole. And in that blackness, dozens of green eyes blinked open. Not just one creature, many. The forest was no longer silent. The third scream still echoed in Ethan's skull, vibrating inside his bones like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. The darkness pressed against him, thicker than night, almost alive, and then those eyes, dozens of them, glowing, unblinking, circling him in the ruined cabin. Green flames that floated like embers, but each pair was locked on him with predatory hunger. Ethan's hand trembled as he raised the axe. His knuckles whitened. His breath came out in ragged bursts. Stay back, he rasped, though his voice sounded weak in the suffocating dark. The first creature emerged from the black. Its body was wrong, a monkey's shape, but taller, longer arms, bones jutting at odd angles as though broken and healed too many times. Its jaw stretched wide, tearing skin as it grinned. Behind it, another followed, and another. The cabin groaned under the weight of their numbers, their claws scraped against the wood. The sound was unbearable, like knives carving bone. Ethan's mind screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then came the whisper, dozens of voices at once, weaving into a chorus that slithered inside his head. Marked, marked, the hollow claims him. Ethan clutched his skull, falling to his knees. The book thudded to the floor beside him, pages flapping wildly as though feeding on the chaos. Shadows spilled out from the ink itself, crawling across the floor. One of the creatures lunged. Ethan swung the axe with every ounce of desperation he had. The blade connected, splitting its chest. The thing shrieked, but instead of blood, a torrent of black smoke poured out, filling the air with the stench of rot. The smoke twisted, forming faces of people screaming, begging. Ethan stumbled back, gagging, as hands seemed to reach out from the mist. The other creatures didn't flinch. They laughed. A chorus of guttural, broken chuckles that made his stomach turn. Not enough. The whispering grew louder. Blood. Only blood frees you. Ethan's eyes darted to the book. The words on the page had changed again, glowing faintly in the dark. The Howler cannot be killed, but the host, the vessel, strike the heart, and the hollow weakens. The host. Ethan's stomach twisted. The monkey, the first one, the one that had followed him, the one the djinn had taken. It crouched in the corner now, eyes burning brighter than the others, mouth dripping with black saliva. It tilted its head, grinning wider, as though daring Ethan to try. Ethan gripped the axe tighter, his body shaking. He knew what he had to do, but as he stepped forward, the voices screamed louder, deafening, maddening. His vision blurred, and the forest itself seemed to press in, trees groaning, roots breaking through the floorboards. The hollow was awake, and it wanted his soul. The cabin felt smaller with every passing second. The walls creaked and buckled, the wood groaning as if the forest itself was leaning closer, listening, waiting. Ethan's lungs burned. He could barely breathe. The glowing eyes around him swirled in the dark, countless, shifting like smoke, but one pair stood still, brighter, sharper, more alive than the rest. The host, the monkey, crouched in the corner, body jerking unnaturally, as if strings pulled it. Its head twitched side to side, a broken rhythm. Its mouth peeled open far too wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. And then, it spoke, but the voice wasn't its own. It was deeper, layered, ancient, a growl threaded with human tones. Strike me, hunter, spill the vessel's blood. You free the Hollow, you join us. The words clawed into Ethan's chest. His grip on the axe weakened, sweat poured down his face. What if it's lying? He muttered to himself. His voice cracked. What if killing it just feeds them? The whispers answered immediately. Kill it, kill it, kill it. They chanted in unison, echoing in his skull, louder and louder until it felt like his head would split open. Ethan's vision blurred. He staggered, the axe trembling in his hands. For a moment he saw the monkey not as a creature but as something else, something human. A boy, maybe 12, staring at him with hollow eyes, pleading silently for release. No, Ethan whispered, stumbling back. This isn't real. None of this is. The host lunged. Its claws sliced through the air, inches from his face. Ethan dropped to the floor, rolling aside as wood splintered where he had just stood. The other creatures shrieked in delight, circling tighter. Their laughter was unbearable. Ethan gritted his teeth, his knuckles tightened around the axe. The pages of the book glowed again at his feet, a single sentence burning into his mind. Hesitation feeds the hollow, resolve starves it. Resolve. Ethan pushed himself up, legs shaking but firm. He raised the axe high. His chest thundered with a single truth: there was no other way. The host's eyes widened. The laughter stopped. For the first time, the hollow hesitated. Ethan roared and brought the axe down. The blade sank deep into the creature's chest. The forest erupted. A shockwave of black smoke burst outward, tearing through the cabin walls, rattling the trees. The other creatures shrieked and dissolved into the mist, their glowing eyes blinking out one by one. The host's body convulsed violently, black ichor pouring from its wound. Its jaw opened in a final scream, not of pain, but of rage. You've cut the vessel, but the hollow remains. The voice shattered into 1,000 echoes, swallowed by the wind. The monkey's body collapsed, twitching once, then fell still. Ethan stood over it, chest heaving, the axe dripping black. The silence that followed was worse than the chaos before. And then, from deep within the forest, something howled, a sound so immense, so ancient, it rattled his bones. The howler, it had awoken. The echo of the howl seemed endless. It rolled through the hollow like a storm, rattling branches, shaking dirt from the rafters of the half-destroyed cabin. Ethan's heart pounded so hard it felt like it might split his ribs. That sound hadn't come from the host. It hadn't come from the shadows. It came from something far larger, something that had been waiting for him all along. He stumbled outside into the moonlight. The forest had gone silent, not even the wind moved. The trees stood tall and rigid, their branches twisted skyward as if frozen in prayer. And then he saw it, at first, just two eyes, not glowing like the host's, but burning, molten, like twin furnaces in the dark. They hovered at a height no animal should reach, swaying slightly between the trees. Ethan raised his axe instinctively, but his arms felt small, meaningless against the weight of that gaze. The trees shifted. Something massive moved between them. Bark cracked, branches snapped, a shape emerged, too large to be real, too grotesque to be imagined. The Howler. Its body was half-formed, half-shadow, a towering lupin figure, its skin torn and stretched thin like parchment, revealing pulsing veins of light beneath. Its jaw unhinged, wider than any wolf's, lined with teeth that looked less like bone and more like shards of obsidian. When it breathed, the air frosted over, the grass at Ethan's feet turning white with frost. And then it spoke, not in whispers, not in echoes, but in a single voice deep enough to rattle the earth. "You bled my vessel, you woke me." Ethan's throat tightened. What are you?" The Howler tilted its head. Its neck cracked. The hollow, the hunger, the silence between heartbeats. "I am every scream you've swallowed in fear." Ethan stumbled back. His heel caught a root, and he almost fell. He gripped the axe tighter, but his arms shook violently. The Howler stepped forward. Each footfall thundered like a drumbeat. The ground trembled beneath its weight, and then it crouched low, lowering its burning gaze to meet Ethan's eyes. "You are mine, hunter." The howl that followed split the sky itself. Birds burst from the trees in a frenzy. The moon seemed to flicker. Ethan dropped to his knees, clutching his ears as blood trickled from them. And yet, through the ringing in his head, through the terror clawing at his chest, he remembered the book. The glowing words, "Resolve starves the hollow." He forced himself to look up, to meet that monstrous gaze. His voice was hoarse, broken, but steady. "I'm not afraid of you." For the first time, the Howler flinched. Its burning eyes narrowed, and then, it laughed. A horrible booming sound that made the trees sway. "We'll see." The forest plunged into darkness. Ethan blinked hard, but it made no difference. The moonlight was gone. The forest was gone. Even the stars overhead had been swallowed. It was as if Devil's Hollow had been dropped into a void, and he stood at the center of it. A cold breath slid across his neck. He spun nothing. Then a growl rumbled behind him. He turned again. Nothing. The Howler was playing with him. He tightened his grip on the axe. His pulse was deafening in his ears. Each beat felt slower, heavier, dragging him down. The Hollow was starving him of courage, draining his will. A whisper slid through the dark. Run. The ground quaked. A shape lunged from the black mass of fur and shadow and burning eyes. Ethan threw himself aside just as claws raked the earth where he'd stood. The soil split open, roots dangling like veins. He ran, branches clawed at his arms, roots tore at his boots. Every step was a battle to stay upright. Behind him, the thunder of footsteps shook the ground. The Howler wasn't rushing it. Didn't need to. It wanted the chase. He burst into a small clearing, gasping, and his eyes caught something glowing faintly in the dirt. A symbol carved into the ground, pulsing with the same light he'd seen in the book. He slid to his knees, brushing the dirt with his hand. The moment his skin touched the mark, the warmth surged up his arm. A word burned in his mind. Endure. The forest groaned. The Howler howled. It leaped into the clearing, towering above him, its form shuddering with fury. Ethan rose, the axe still in his grip, the word echoing inside him like a heartbeat. The Howler struck. A claw swiped downward, faster than his eyes could follow. He didn't move. The strike stopped inches from his face. The beast's claw trembled against an invisible barrier of light. Sparks hissed in the air. For the first time, Ethan saw fear not in himself, but in the monster. The Howler snarled, snapping its jaws, pushing harder. The barrier cracked like glass. The light flickered. Ethan screamed the word, his voice tearing through the dark. Endure. The clearing erupted in light. The Howler reeled back, its body burning with cracks of fire, its howl a sound of both rage and pain. Trees toppled, the ground split, and the hollow itself seemed to shudder, but Ethan's knees buckled. The strength drained from him as quickly as it had come. His vision blurred, the glow fading from his skin. Through the haze, he saw the Howler retreating into the black, its burning eyes still locked on him. The hunt isn't over. And then Ethan collapsed, the forest slowly bleeding back into shape. The moonlight returned. The trees stood tall again. The clearing was empty, except for him, but deep in the shadows he knew the Howler was still there, watching, waiting. The forest no longer felt like a living place. It felt like a graveyard that could breathe. Every tree leaned inward, their twisted branches clawing toward me, as if they wanted to pull me into their bark. The once green canopy had turned into a black ceiling of rot, letting no moonlight through. Only the faint orange glow of fungal growth clung to the bark, casting sickly, unnatural light. And through that suffocating silence, the monkey's breathing echoed, but it wasn't the breathing of an animal anymore. It was layered, one tone human, the other demonic, vibrating like broken glass in my skull. I gripped the rusted machete I had scavenged, my knuckles white. It felt useless, just a shard of dull metal against something that wasn't bound by flesh. Then the voice came, the same voice that had been speaking through the monkey since the possession began. "Why do you keep walking deeper?" it whispered. "You were warned. This place is not yours. This body is not yours. This jungle is not yours." The sound didn't come from the monkey's lips. It came from the trees, from the soil beneath me, from inside my own ears. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked tight. The monkey stepped into view. Its eyes no longer yellow, but glowing pure white like burning coals. Its movements were unnatural, too smooth, as if invisible strings pulled it. It tilted its head, upside down, until its neck cracked. Then it smiled. Not the way an animal smiles. The way a predator smiles at prey that has nowhere left to run. I staggered back, but the ground beneath me writhed like it was alive. Roots snapped free from the soil, twisting like snakes, trying to coil around my ankles. I slashed down with the machete, cutting through one, then another, but every cut made the forest groan like I was wounding a living beast. The voice laughed. "You cut me, yet you still walk on my back. You cannot win, you cannot leave." The monkey's body jerked violently. Its arms stretched far longer than they should have, claws sprouting from its fingers, its jaw unhinged wider, the bones cracking with wet, horrible pops. A scream erupted, not just from its throat but from the entire forest, echoing in every direction at once. I fell to my knees, covering my ears, but the sound was inside me, shaking my bones. When I looked up, the monkey was gone. Only the trees stood in silence, watching, waiting. Then, a shadow moved across the canopy, faster than thought, a shape darting between the trees. The monkey wasn't gone. It was above me. I raised the machete just as it dropped, a blur of fur, claws, and glowing eyes. It hit the ground with impossible weight, shaking the earth, and I barely rolled away before its claws tore through where I had been kneeling. Its head spun fully backward, those glowing eyes fixing on me even as its body crouched, ready to spring again. And for the first time since entering the jungle, I realized something. This wasn't just a possession. The forest itself, the soil, the trees, the air, was alive, and the monkey was its vessel. I wasn't fighting an animal. I wasn't even fighting a demon. I was fighting the soul of the jungle itself, and it had chosen me as its sacrifice. Pause in narration. Low tone, as if preparing for the next attack. The ground trembled. The vines thickened, slithering closer. The possessed monkey crouched, grinning with that broken, impossible face. And as I tightened my grip on the machete, I knew this wasn't survival anymore. It was a last stand. Part 9 ends here, setting up the final confrontation in Part 10, where the jungle unleashes its full fury, and your lone character has to face not just the monkey, but the entity inside the forest itself. The ground trembled, the vines thickened, slithering closer. The possessed monkey crouched, grinning with that broken, impossible face. And as I tightened my grip on the machete, I knew this wasn't survival anymore. It was a last stand. The forest roared with a sound that was not of this world. Trees bent and twisted, as if the ground itself was rejecting the unholy force that had taken root within the monkey's body. The air shimmered with heat, though no fire burned. Shadows stretched unnaturally, forming shapes of screaming faces. Daniel staggered forward, his clothes torn, his body weak, but his will unbroken. His flashlight flickered, and then died completely. Darkness swallowed him, except for the faint glow of two burning eyes that belonged to the possessed monkey. The demon laughed, a sound like broken glass grinding against steel. "You thought you could survive this forest? This is my domain now. You are nothing." Daniel clenched his fists. His body shook, but his voice rose with defiance. "You're wrong. You don't own this place, and you'll never own me." The monkey lunged forward, its body twisting midair with impossible speed. Daniel rolled to the ground, narrowly missing its claws that ripped through the earth like blades. He grabbed a broken branch, the last thing he could use as a weapon, but before the demon could strike again, the forest itself stirred. The ancient tree, the one Daniel had passed at the beginning of the journey, began to glow faintly with silver light. Whispers filled the air, but these whispers were different. They weren't the whispers of madness. They were chants, old words in a forgotten tongue, echoing from the spirits of the forest. The demon howled in fury, No, they cannot banish me. This vessel is mine. Daniel's mind flashed with a single realization. The forest wanted him to finish it. He stumbled toward the glowing tree, the demon charging close behind. Just as the monkey leaped, Daniel slammed the branch into the hollow of the glowing trunk. The forest erupted. A beam of pure, blinding light exploded outward, striking the monkey midair. The creature screamed, a high, unearthly wail, as the demonic form was ripped from its body. For a moment, Daniel saw it, a towering shadow with horns and burning eyes being dragged back into the abyss. The monkey, free at last, collapsed unconscious at Daniel's feet. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping. The forest grew still. The whispers faded. The silver glow of the tree dimmed into silence. When dawn finally broke, Daniel emerged from the forest, bloodied but alive. Behind him, Devil's Hollow stood quiet, almost peaceful, as though nothing had happened. But Daniel knew the truth. Evil had been there, and though defeated, it would never truly be gone. As he limped down the dirt path, the sound of rustling leaves followed him. A soft whisper touched his ear. "We'll meet again." Daniel froze, staring back at the tree line. The forest looked normal in the sunlight, but he knew the demon wasn't destroyed, only imprisoned, and someday it would return.